let's start with a video.
Slow down traffic. Covers off their phone. Thank you for sharing.
All right. That was a video that we received last year from Amiki Elementary School in Nashville, Tennessee. And we received thousands of such videos. These videos were part of a program that Zendrive launched with a whole bunch of like-minded companies like Uber, Lyft, and Microsoft, where kids across United States could come up with interesting ideas about how they want to make roads around their schools safer, and how do they want to make their communities safer. Thinking about road safety and thinking about saving lives on the road is something that we do at Zendrive pretty much every day. Zendrive is a company that I co-founded 6 years ago with a mission to make roads safer. Some of you may actually ask, why is this important? Why is this a problem that a startup is actually working on? So let me give you a little bit of a background story about why this is relevant to me. Prior to starting Zendrive, I and my co-founder worked at companies like Google and Facebook. And during our tenure, we created technologies that were very engaging, that made life easy for users. But as part of making life easy, we also made them addicted to the small screen. These days you can see it on the road all around you. Distracted driving is one of the biggest menace on the road. Nearly 25% of all road fatalities are attributed to distracted drivers. So in some ways, Zendrive is a way for me and my co-founder to absolve our sins of creating the distraction in the first place. Right? So, safety on the road. Safety on the road is a human problem. It's not just a technology problem. It's not just a car problem. Like I mentioned, 90% of all collisions are caused by human error in judgment. It's not the vehicles. And when you think about a problem that is a human problem, you need to think about a holistic solution. It is not just a problem that can be solved with innovative technology and use of data, but also involving people, also creating right kind of business structures and incentives for ensuring that people drive safer on the road. Right? It turns out actually one such experiment is right now going on all the Indian roads. Right? A few weeks ago, all the fines for traffic violations across India went up, and all of us are hearing about it, and some of us might have actually paid for it as well. It's an interesting experiment. We don't know how much impact that will have on the driving behavior of people on the road. Humans are complex creatures. We think differently. There are times when people like to break rules just because the rules are there. And solving a problem like this in a holistic manner will require technology, will require business incentives, will require sort of the entire community to come together. So let's talk about, if you have to think about technology and business coming together to really solve a problem like this, let's talk about some technology initiatives or technologies that are afoot at this point in time that are actually key to making this work, key to making this successful. The first and foremost, mobile phones. Mobile phones, like I talked about, are the source of distraction, but humans have, like I mentioned, humans have a complex relationship with technology. There is always good and bad to technology. So we talk about mobile phones as sort of, taking our lives. These are the supercomputing devices that we are carrying in our pockets, not just from an information perspective, but from a perspective of sensing the world, from a perspective of being able to act on it. And these are also the devices that we listen to most. So really, sort of, there is a huge revolution going on. All of us are part of it. And mobile phones have a huge part to play when it comes to sort of, making roads safer. The other interesting change that is sweeping through the entire world is something all of us, at least in this room, are clearly part of, which is software and artificial intelligence. Right? In the past, when people thought about creating safer transportation systems, people thought about telematics. Let's gather a lot of data, and that will help us make things safer. Well, gathering data is one thing, but actually understanding and analyzing that data and being able to derive the right insights out of it is really what makes the solution valuable. So it's not about the hardware, it's really about the software. It's about the new sources of data. We are talking about human behavior here. So just knowing the speeds and the accelerations and so on is not going to be sufficient. It has to be about involving human element. What is the distraction? What kind of distraction? What is the context in which user is driving? All of those things become extremely relevant. And that really sort of, mobile plus the software and AI really together bring out what we would like to call the modern telematics. But there is also the third aspect to sort of, the technology of it, which is the behavioral sciences. Right? It's not just enough to understand and measure and monitor, but it's really about making the behavior change at the end of it. It needs to be, the technology, the solution needs to be human-centric, not vehicle-centric. And that's really has been sort of, one of the difficulties of the solutions in the past. The solution needs to cater to human need and create the right kind of technical solutions as well as incentives. So let's talk about the second aspect, which is the technology enablers are there, but what kind of incentives can be created to make people drive safer on the road, right? One, we talked about sort of, the negative financial incentives, which is really the fines on the road. But if you take all the different things, you can put them into three distinct type of things. There are social incentives, things like, I want to make sure that, I am seen as a better, safer member of the community. Emotional incentives that are more about my family is safe, I am safe on the road. And then financial incentives. I want to make sure that at the end of it, me being safer has a financial reward. There is money to be saved or made at the end of it. Now at Zendrive, over the last several years, we have worked with a large number of consumer brands, companies in emergency, roadside assistance, family safety, and so on, serving millions of customers, primarily focused on the social and the emotional drivers or the impact for behavior change. Today, given the kind of audience that we have here, a lot more about business, I wanted to focus a lot more on the financial aspects of it. What comes to mind when we think about safety on the road, apart from the vehicle itself? The next industry that comes to mind really is insurance. Right? Every time there is a mishap on the road, an insurance company ends up paying for it in one form or the other. Right? So let's, before we get into how insurance can create right kind of incentives, let's even look at how is insurance industry sort of, dealing with this? What are the big challenges that they are having? And are there reasons for insurance industry itself to do the right things when it comes to road safety? So first things first, just a show of hands, how many people here feel very happy with their insurance policy, auto insurance policy? Wow, not a single hand goes up. Um, that's really the state of the industry across the globe. Consumers are generally not happy with their auto insurance policies. Premiums are on the rise. The data here is for a country like United States. But if you look at the data for India, the numbers are going significantly higher. 10, 15, 20% annual increments are fairly common. With an insurance provider, my relationship always feels like a transactional relationship. I end up buying an insurance policy once a year, and then I forget all about it, and so does my insurance company until the renewal time comes next year, and then I have to pay again, right? And I just hope throughout that entire time that I don't get into a collision, because if I do, it's going to be an extremely poor experience when I have to actually file for the claims, right? Just a data point over there, the third-party claims settlement in India takes anywhere between, when it's the fault of another person, it takes anywhere between 1 to 3 years to resolve that claim. That's a massive, massive problem when you think about an insurance case. So that's how the consumers are feeling. Maybe people like you and me who are buying these insurance policies are frustrated. But what about the insurance business as a whole? Is that doing well? Well, it turns out not really. You can read through the data. The thing that is important to understand here is this number called combined ratio. This is the ratio of for every dollar that insurance company brings in as a premium, what fraction of it is going out because of claims and because of expenses. And you can see sort of, in 2016, and the numbers have actually got worse over the years for many companies in US, is, almost everybody is above 100, which means every single insurance company is making an underwriting or an operational loss. The story is no different in India. In fact, it's actually much, much worse. Why? Because 60% of automobiles in India are not even insured. Right? So whenever there is an uninsured kind of a scenario, the claims end up becoming much higher. The combined ratio in India, because of expenses, are really higher, and in fact highest when you look at all the developed and including all the developing countries. The numbers in 115 to 120% range are fairly common, right? So there is a continuous underwriting loss if you look at it. The only way these companies are able to make money is because we pay our insurance premium at the beginning of the year. They invest all of that money, and they make margins on those investments, and that's how they are able to break even or make a little bit of profit. Right? So that's really the state of the industry as a whole. And why is this happening? Well, we talked about some of these reasons, right? Insurance models, the pricing models, the underwriting models don't account for driving behavior, right? There was a study by Vodafone that came up, which mentioned that every 1 out of 50% of us don't hesitate twice about picking up phone while driving and taking up a call, right? So distracted driving being a leading cause of collisions, and none of this is modeled into the insurance pricing yet. Insurance is still stuck in sort of the old age of proxy variables. So I, being on the wrong side of 40, married and having 2 kids, will pay a lot less for insurance compared to many of you who are much younger. Right? Things like credit score, color of the car, and those kinds of things end up determining how much insurance you pay, as opposed to really the true variables, which is how you are driving on the road. So this is where the insurance sort of industry is. So no one is happy. The consumers are not happy. The insurers are not happy. What is possible is really sort of to create the right incentive. There is a need for creating a new insurance model altogether. And this model is really about behavior-based pricing. How I drive determines how much insurance premium I pay, not who I am or where I live. Right? What is called as pay how you drive or pay as you go kind of pricing is really what is essential for doing that. And this is where Zendrive comes in. Like I mentioned, this is the company I founded 6 years ago. We harness the technical capabilities that are available, which is all about the mobile and the software and the AI capabilities, and marry them with the business to create right incentives overall. Right? So let's watch a quick video that kind of covers it very well.
Zendrive, making roads safe using data and analytics. Zendrive's data helps you measure and improve driver safety, leading to savings in insurance, reductions in collisions, and more. Zendrive's tech sits inside your driver's app, on your driver's smartphones. It uses phone sensors to measure driving behaviors. Safe driving gives a high safety score. Bad behaviors, like phone use, hard braking, speeding, and other dangerous behaviors, give drivers a lower safety score. The scores of all your drivers combine to get an overall score, so you can track and measure the safety of your fleet. You can see your driver scores on a dashboard in real time. Your bottom 25% of drivers usually account for 50% of collisions. It's easy to identify, coach, and improve unsafe or high-cost drivers. Zendrive. Save money, save lives.
So that's essentially what we do at Zendrive. As the video mentioned, our technology gets embedded into the customer's application. We are already deployed in a large number of applications, both consumer as well as commercial. And we provide insights and behavioral insights, more specifically, about all the different kinds of driving behaviors that are listed over there. In the interest of time, I'll move a little faster. This is the overall footprint for the Zendrive. We are the largest such driving behavior platform out there. We have analyzed over 60 million users, 180 billion miles, and pretty much everywhere across the globe we have presence now. From an insurance perspective, if you want to really solve the problem and create the right kind of incentives, you need to solve the problem in 3 phases, right? The first is at the time of buying a policy. Can insurance companies create better discounts or better pricing for drivers that are safer? Second is through the life cycle of the policy. How do you remove it from being a transactional relationship to a relationship that people want to be part of and are actually getting value constantly? And the third being, when the time comes to actually make a claim, it turns out to be a good experience, right? So this is the first part of the puzzle. Better risk segmentation. Because Zendrive uses the real variables about driving, we are able to identify the risk much better. And we are able to segment the drivers much better, which enables you to look at these 2 areas in the curve. The green areas are the ones where the drivers are risky and are underpaying, and blue areas are the ones where the drivers are safe and are overpaying. And using technology, you can incentivize the good drivers to continue to be good and give them and reward them while making sure that the drivers that are unsafe on the road have a reason to become safer. Of course, this requires a lot of technologies to come in, and we talked about some of those early on with smartphones and with AI. This is an example of a technological advancement that we just announced recently. We built a capability to automatically detect violations of stop signs. Anytime a user violates a stop sign, we would automatically be able to detect that. Why this is important? In general, in the past, people have not used such kind of behavioral signals. And what we found was looking at just this single behavior alone allows you to segment the risk in a much more significant way. People who violate a stop sign at least once a month are 5 to 6 times more likely to get into a collision compared to the people who don't. Right? So that's a very staggering statistic. And only having the right kind of data, the right kind of technology powered by artificial intelligence and machine learning allows you to do something like that. And that's what Zendrive solution really does for you. How do you create the value through the life cycle of the policy? Right? When I'm buying insurance, the purpose of the insurance is in case of an eventuality or something bad happens, I'm covered. But you just don't want to be covered financially. You want to be covered so that somebody has got your back. They will be able to help you when you are in need. And one of the coolest technologies that Zendrive has built is really ability to detect collisions. Again, based on massive amounts of data and machine learning capabilities, where we can automatically detect collisions purely based on smartphones and the sensors within them. And once detected, emergency roadside assistance can be shipped almost instantaneously. And I'm really proud to say that over the last several years, we have shipped thousands of emergency response vehicles in cases where no help would have reached. And so we are definitely serving our mission of saving lives that way. But again, from a customer's perspective, it's a huge, huge value proposition. And the value throughout the life cycle of policy just doesn't come from saving my life or having my back whenever a bad event happens, but throughout the policy, creating the right kind of coaching strategies so that people who are unsafe drivers can become safer and can actually start saving more and more money on their insurance, right? And we have lots of data that talks about how sustained efforts at coaching people can reduce speeding by 20% and use a phone by as much as 60%. And these kinds of coachings can lead to a significant reduction. We are talking about, in one of the studies that we have done, almost a 50% reduction in collision rate over time. That's a huge business value getting created, but at the same time, a huge societal value, because at the end of it, all of those sort of lives are getting saved, and that's a huge contribution. This is the last part of the puzzle, which is about sort of how do you create for businesses ways to create the right incentives again. Because we can detect collisions, we also identify what happened during the collision and give detailed forensic insights about that, which allows insurance companies to figure out things like fraud, the extent of claim, and really sort of give a much better customer experience at the end of it. That number that we saw about taking 1 to 3 years to close a claim could be significantly enhanced once you have all of this data at your fingertips. So really sort of if you look at the future of transportation, it's going as we talked about earlier, it's going to be a combination of technology and right kind of incentives coming together to making roads safer. And the Zendrive technology, along with the customers that we work with who bring in the right incentives, is really driving towards it. And finally, I would like to leave you with this video. So we not only collected all these entries, but we actually gave the winning entry $50,000. And this was the winning entry which actually used that money to sort of change how their pavement is, and essentially ended up sort of making roads safer around their school. That's pretty much my talk. If there are questions, I'll be happy to answer those. Thank you. Yes, I see a question over there.
That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you. So how do you see the usage in India here, or is it already in use, or how is it?
So yes, India is a very interesting market when it comes to sort of all the ingredients, if you will, from the technology perspective and from the business perspective are all there. But if you look at the adoption at this point in time, this is still pretty low. India, from an insurance perspective, is significantly regulated and is still lagging, even in terms of sort of some of the basic capabilities. So we are seeing a lot of interest. Very recently, if you remember, sort of IRDA announced a sandbox, if you will, for insurers so that they can try out innovative products in a limited setting before actually bringing it out to the market. And so we feel that with initiatives like this coming out from IRDA, there is a good possibility of adoption of many of these technologies into market like India.
One more thing.
Yes.
With the autonomous vehicles in the abroad,
Yes.
so how do you see? I mean, this will synergize with the autonomous vehicles, or
yeah, again,
how it will pan out?
absolutely. Autonomous vehicles are sort of a tremendous technology that is coming together, and I firmly believe that is the eventual future. I keep saying I don't want my grandkids to apply for driving license. Right? But in there is sort of it's going to take a lot of time, right? We are looking at the technology is still in infancy, still being tested. So there is several years of testing and development, and then there is a very long period of transition from human driving to autonomous driving. And when you have both of these things together, things actually will get worse before they get better. Right? And so, we believe the kind of behavioral insights that we are pulling out of the data are actually going to be tremendously valuable for autonomous industry as well, because when both humans and autonomous cars on the road, they can utilize this data to make, safer decisions on the road.
Right. Thank you.
Yes.
Have you done anything on potholes?
On potholes.
Application,
yes.
use case of this technology on potholes?
Last question. Sure. Yeah, again, the condition of road is sort of, more broadly thinking about it. There has been some bit of research. We ourselves as a company have not invested much into that, but there has been a lot of research about how condition of road affects sort of, safety. In fact, there are several research papers that are out there. Again, it really becomes, in some ways, as a proxy, by measuring the behavior of users, we are certainly measuring sort of, those kinds of things. Today, we measure compliance against things like stop signs, things like speed limits on the road. That's probably a next thing. And it is more applicable to sort of, cities like Bangalore that are sort of, all of us saw the video recently with the Mars landing. Yes.
We can take one more question.
We can take one more question. Yes, please. Yes, there is a question right here.
Can we get the mic?
Is this done through any sensors in the cars as well as mobile technology, or only with mobile technologies we have used this?
Sure. That's an excellent question. So the base solution that we have works completely off of mobile phone. It simply requires a smartphone with basic capabilities like GPS and an accelerometer, and then additional capabilities like gyroscope available. That's great. It can simply work with that. Of course, availability of better sensors on the smartphone or having additional data from a car can only help. But what we have found is simply using smartphone gives you enough data to make very useful observations of driving behavior out of it and create right recommendations out of it. And what you see is, smartphones are ubiquitous. You cannot find a car outside that does not have a smartphone in it right now, right? So it's much easier to do deployment and all of that. And that's really why we chose smartphones. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. Can we give him a nice round of applause? Thank you.